Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Times Hour. All right, Paul, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, please rise and help us welcome to the tee our next special guest in our series on pioneer women in disc golf. She's the smiling cherub from the hub of the flying disc world, one of the original Oak Grovers who's been a mover and a shaker, a player and a playmaker since the time before the beveled line. She's the daughter of a Rose, that famous bowler, used to the accolades raining down in spades from the Rose Bowl to the arena. She's the commish of Pasadena, the pirate DJ from Altadena, living on the air with style and flair and a bag full of tricks for the listeners of KD6. As TD of the Wintertime Open, she set the gold standard for quality cool. Quality like the running team at McFarland High School. She kept the golfers from moping by offering big bucks on a course that rocks. Like a vintage wine, she just gets better in time, and she and her sidekick have left their mark on the history of the flying disc in SoCal and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the tee, the legend of Oak Grove, summertime, Susie Horn.
Nice.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being on the Good Times Hour.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, without a doubt. Thanks for joining us, obviously. We'll get started with the framework and the introduction. Obviously, you're Susie Horn. You're from Altadena, California. You've been a member since 1976, and your PDJ number is 68.
Ha,
Nice.
And it has
Nice.
my maiden name, Sue Rouse. Like
Oh,
you said.
cool.
Yeah.
And then Mark's number is number 67. So you guys must have been standing in line together when you got him.
Actually, we went to Ed Hedrick's house because Stork told us you guys got to do this. And we went to Ed Hedrick's house. His daughter was sitting in a rocking chair. She had had a baby like 12 hours before. She's holding the baby in the rocking chair, surrounded by boxes and boxes of discs, or frisbees, I should say frisbees like this one. And we signed up. It was the second day.
The second day that
The
it was
second
available?
day.
Yes, he was at the Grove, and he said, and Stork had told us, you guys got to do this. And so we said, okay. And so then we talked to Ed, and he said, well, just come to my house. So we came to his house and signed up.
He's there with
That's
his
so
grandchild and everything. That's awesome. So,
cool.
so like, I don't know how many of our episodes you've caught so far, but it's kind of become a recurring theme where, and I might have even mentioned this to you when we were hanging out in North Carolina, but everybody has a story about, oh, I couldn't, like Cheryl's, for instance. I could have been this number, except for I chose 76 because of 1976. And so many people have a story like that, but it doesn't sound like you do. Sounds like you heard about it and you guys went and did it right away.
We took what Ed gave us, you know. We weren't we just took what he gave us.
That's
we didn't
awesome.
have a plan.
That's great. That's great. Did you get a t-shirt?
That's the question, yeah.
We were trying, Mark said that we probably got something. We got a 141 mold, which also had my name and number, and we had a 119, and we got lifetime membership, and he said we got one other thing, but I don't remember what it was. So I don't think we got the shirt.
Interesting, but lifetime membership's pretty good perk.
Yeah. I mean, we still pay yearly, but you know, we weren't members for a long time, and they kept our numbers sacrosanct, so that was good.
So you have your maiden name on that
Yes.
PDGA Frisbee.
Yes.
When did you guys get married?
We got married in 1980.
1980,
We lived
okay.
together for 5 years.
Okay.
And
Wow.
ran the Wintertime Open for 1 year before we got married. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, if you guys can run a tournament together, you can stay almost 50 years together.
Yeah.
That's
44.
pretty, that's an amazing, I mean, we're gonna,
I always tell people Frisbee golf saved our marriage, you know, because you can, I tell people that you can not be able to talk to each other But you know, our son is an avid disc golfer too, and there were times when we did not see eye to eye, but we can go play a round of golf,
Mm.
and you just connect. I mean, it's a connector, disc golf, and by the end, everybody's stuck
It's hard to
together.
get back to being mad after that, right?
Exactly. It puts you in a place, right? You guys know,
For
you
sure.
put you in a place where you should be.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We've got some other insights later in the show on and a couple of things that you've said in print about the beautiful implications of the sport and the connections and the friendships. So that's a great theme we're going to build on, but we want to look kind of more into the past to start, because
Okay.
obviously you, as I said, you're the original Oak Grover.
Well,
But
there,
before we get into that, why don't you keep teeing up the framework, Mace? Because
All
we
right.
need to know
So,
who this Susie Horn is.
so her global Masters series rank is 2, and the women between 70 and 74. I didn't say that. I read it. Okay, so don't hold it against me, Susie. One of the earliest Oak Grove OGs, assistant TD for the Wintertime Open for 40 years, and co-commissioner for disc golf at the Pasadena Senior Games. So I want to touch on this like this. We're gonna talk about this a lot, obviously, because there's not very many events that have been going on for that long. But that like I can only just imagine. I've run the Zebos Open for 22 years. This will be number 23 for me this year, and I can only just imagine
stick with
like
it. Stick with
40
it.
years. Like that's just like all the different things, all the different milestones, all the different players, like just that alone. Like if you had a roster of everybody that's come through and played that event, just that alone would be fascinating to sit and read for 15, 20, 2 or 3 hours. I mean, because all the divisions, all the different players, 40 years, that's amazing. Talk a little bit, just tell us a little bit about like, I guess just what's your favorite memory, I guess is the best question on that.
Well, I guess it's as you say, all the players. Okay. Um, our son Christopher Horn has been in everyone. I mean, and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, the first one he was inside me, but he's been there the whole time, and he still is there the whole time. So, you know, that's very important to me. Gary Sandoval, who runs the team tournament this year up at Silmar, he's been to all of them except one. And he wasn't able to get in the 41st or 43rd one, but he's been in all of them. And all the SoCal people know Gary Sandoval. And just all the players. I mean, um, from NorCal, they used to all come down. Jeff Fielder, Peter Sontag. I sent Paul a picture of them playing guts. I think when we had guts and freestyle and MTA, those are really good times. Um, the Ricos have bragging rights about being really good guts players.
Really?
Oh
Oh,
And
yeah.
wow.
oh yeah, oh yeah, they were very into guts. Beth Varish was on their team, so that's her bragging right. And but just all the players, and you know, to go to Oak Grove even today, and or tournaments like Las Vegas or the Worlds, and have people come up to you, you know.
Tell
I
you a
don't know if you
story
guys
about
know
when they were there.
Vince Gardner from Las Vegas. I think he just moved to Colorado. He stayed at our house when he was an Australian player.
Mm.
And he came here to the US Open with this team of Brits, 8 Brits, and Charlie Meade was one of them. And Vince Gardner, and they all stayed in our living room in our house on the floor. They just slept on the floor. And when Charlie Meade got his award for Hall of Fame this year, he mentioned that. He told his mom, what other sport can you go and stay with complete strangers? And they house you and feed you. And you know, and this still goes on today. I mean, we're not unique. It still goes
Oh,
on, you
I've
know.
definitely done more than my share of couch surfing. Definitely. And that, you know, that's I'd have to agree with Charlie on that too. That's one of the coolest things about this game is that, you know, folks just like, hey, wait, where are you staying? I mean, I did that. I would find places to stay within an hour or two of sunset on Friday nights on a regular basis back in the touring days. And they're like, well, who are you staying with tonight? And I was like, well, you know, I hadn't even really thought about it. I was like, well, they're like, well, why don't you come stay at my house? And, you know, they end up having, I mean, that's how I'm not exactly how I met Paul, but I mean, Paul stayed, it was the opposite. Paul stayed at my house, needed a place to stay. Oh, come on, I got room. Let's go. You know, and it's just how it works. It's such a cool thing about the game and the spirit of the people.
You know,
Well,
Susie,
the one at, huh?
I was just going to say to that story about Charlie staying on your floor and mentioning it. We were both at the USDGC, and I was just totally starstruck and awestruck, and so I might have missed that particular anecdote. It kind of sounds familiar, especially to his point about the traveling fraternity of the Frisbee. But I didn't realize that was your house that he stayed at. I'm not sure if he said it like specifically.
Yeah, he
I stayed
stayed
at the
at our
Horns.
house.
Okay, well
Mark
that's
gave us an award. He
I
gave
love
us
how it
the
ties
International Housing Award for that.
up.
He made it up.
Nice.
Um, but you know, the one and only time I played with Paige Pierce was in the Tulsa Open. And one of the things she asked me was, um, is your house available to stay at if we play in SoCal?
Nice.
And I said, yeah.
That's
So
a
So
big part of it though. I mean, just being able to put it all together and then stay with somebody. Well, I mean, and it just makes it better. You know, I'd much rather it's kind of like a hotel versus an Airbnb. You know, I mean, like I got an Airbnb in Bend last year, and I was able to have Nate, Val, Sharon, and Cameron Roundhorst over for dinner. And you could have never done that at a hotel, you know, and you end up spending about maybe a little more money, but it's just the home vibe is way better.
we always do Ohana with Tita and Lori Daniels and Harvey Brandt. We call it our Ohana house.
ah,
Family
nice.
Ohana.
I like that.
So, wrapping up just a little bit more information about Susie. She's a 2015 PDGA Honored Sportswoman Award winner, two-time U.S. Masters disc golf champion, six-time WinterTime Open winner, two times Pasadena Senior Games winner, and also two times Pasadena Senior Olympics champion, which is covering a pretty good amount of ground there between all of that.
Now I
Oh, you know, you play disc golf.
yeah.
We play in the weeklies on Tuesday. We get to play with Stork and our newbies on Thursday morning at 6:30 at the Grove.
Wow.
And then Saturday we have the weekly at the Grove. And so we play a lot of disc golf, thank goodness. We were both nurses for 41. I was 41 years, a nurse, Mark was 42. And it's given us the ability to play disc golf all this time. So anyone looking for a career, think nursing.
Well, nursing and education, we have a lot of that
Exactly,
historically, demographically.
exactly.
So let me take you back to the early days. Growing up, did you grow up in Pasadena?
I did not, well, from age 13 on. I
Okay.
started out in Missouri, so Crazy John Brooks and I are, you know, we're Missourians, and I'm doing all this name dropping because I can,
Yeah.
You
right?
should, please do.
And then my dad worked on the Santa Fe Railroad, so wherever the Santa Fe Railroad goes, all across the Southwest, and we ended up in Pasadena.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do you
Interesting.
recall a time in your life where you became aware of the Frisbee? I know, the 60s and 70s, the Frisbee was ubiquitous. It was in the zeitgeist. You couldn't not be aware of a Frisbee. But when did your love for the Frisbee begin?
Well, I met Mark in 75, and we were volleyball players. He was on a volleyball team at our where we were going to nursing school, and his
All
friend
right.
took us to Oak Grove and said, "I have a sport for you guys." And he introduced us to disc golf. We had, of course, you play with a frisbee, but my dad was a basketball and baseball player, so we never had a frisbee growing up. We always had the round ball, not the flat ball.
Interesting. Not the flat ball.
And
There you
so,
go.
not till I came to California did I know about frisbees.
Okay.
And that's how we got introduced, and we just got hooked. We met Stork, we met Tim Selinsky, we met Harold, we met Charlie Duvall, Greg Muir. So we would all play volleyball at San Marino, and then we would go. Tim worked at Tony's Pizza, which is right on the corner of San Marino High School, and we would go. He would open it up, and we'd have ice cream after we played volleyball, or we would play at Lacey Park.
Right.
Yeah.
The
And
old
I
days.
didn't play that much originally. I was going to school, so I'd be reading my books, and Al Bonapane would bug me, and we would talk philosophy.
It's tough to read a book on a disc golf course without someone coming over to you. That's
Well,
for
Lacey was a park. It was a beautiful park.
sure.
So yeah, they were playing DDC, they were playing discathon, they were doing all kinds of stuff. And so I wasn't really involved in that but I did play disc golf at Oak Grove. I did.
Was this before the baskets were installed?
Originally it was just like a stick in the ground. You know what they use for fencing, those green sticks that have little things.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite memories is playing with Ed Hedrick, Stork, Ed Hedrick's son Gary, and Mark and I. And we're playing up, we're playing to the with 119s.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
That is virtually as OG as it gets there at the
Yeah,
course.
yeah. It was a good time. And they were very encouraging. They weren't, no big deal.
Now we talked to Tita. She mentioned the LA Frisbee Club starting in 1975, and she joined up
Uh-huh.
virtually right away. Do you remember the LA Frisbee Club? Did you two guys join right away?
I did not join the LA Frisbee Club.
Okay.
Christopher wanted me. I'm sorry. I was reading my son's text, but sorry about that.
That's all right.
I did not know the LA Frisbee Club. I was not a member. Were we, Mark? Members of the LA Frisbee Club? No, we were just really a weird group at Oak Grove.
Well, no, because we played in the LA versus Santa Barbara
Oh,
competition. As
maybe
part of
we
the
did.
Frisbee Club.
I don't
Right.
remember. I don't remember.
We had
All I
to-
remember is playing at Oak Grove. We would play around, and then Alan Fridge had a VW bus, and he would open the sliding door, and we would have gin and tonic after with limes.
I love it. You have ice cream after volleyball and gin and tonic after Frisbee. That's
Heck,
a way to
yes.
Got to
escalate.
wrap things up, right?
And Tim Selinsky's thing with ice cream persists today. When we go to tournaments, we play all day, and then we go to dinner together, and then we have ice cream. We have to find the best ice cream.
That's awesome.
So
There's
that persists.
nothing wrong with that at all.
Can I
Nothing
mention
wrong.
what Christopher just texted me? My son just texted me. He wanted you guys to know that the world champions that have come out of Oak Grove are Sam Ferentz, Paul
Okay.
McGrath, Jim Oates, Scott Stokely.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
And Sam,
Duvall,
huh?
Harold Duvall.
Harold Duvall.
Oh yeah, Harold.
But we used to call Sam Ferentz. My sister would help us at tournaments. we would call Sam Ferens the gentleman golfer. He was 15. He was such a polite kid.
Hmm.
And Paul Macbeth too. I mean, they were little kids. I call them little kids, but they were so polite and so good. And my Scott Stokely story is my son was like 2 years old, and he would ride his big wheel bike. It was a Smurf mobile. He would ride it down the sidewalk to the parking lot, and Scott Stokely would push him up. And they did that for hours. That's
Wow.
what kind of person Scott is.
That's
So
He
you
has
just
this
lived
bad
down the
boy
street from.
reputation, but he has a good heart.
absolutely.
So, yes.
So you just lived down the street from the course?
We live, yeah, it's like 4 miles
Oh,
to the
okay.
west. But there's a big arroyo in the middle. So we have to go down the mountain, over the arroyo, then back up the arroyo.
Okay.
It's at the base of the mountains, Oak Grove.
Hey, Mace, can you enable the screen share so I can show?
Oh, yeah.
I've got, where did I find that photograph?
There you go.
I should mention, when people play in very wet weather in tournaments, one of the reference points is Soak Grove,
Yes.
which was in '83. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Soak Grove.
Absolutely.
But-
We're going to talk to you about that.
Okay, okay.
Okay, here, this is, I just wanted to, for those who, just to give a visualization, here's, what hole is this?
Yeah, yes. That is our course. It's our
Yeah.
course.
Like,
Isn't it
those are actual
beautiful?
mountains in the background. Look at that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and we live like to the east of there. So if you look up and there's a house on the hillside, we live right below that house.
Wow.
So, yes, that's a beautiful picture. Wow.
I scrubbed the internet for some good content photos. That's for
Good
sure.
job, Paul.
So let's start talking about the pre-bevel days. Let's start talking about
76.
there you go, Mace. Jump right in.
Yeah, so I have to give credit where credit is due. Paul is the deep diver and the digger when it comes to going and finding all this information on the web. And from based on his research, you went and looked, and the PDGA database doesn't show anything for your first event in 1976, but he did figure out that you played your first event in 1976, at least as far as we know. And so what event was that? And do you remember much about it?
It was just golf. And I think it was Stork put the tournament on, and I believe Tita played in it because she kicked my butt. And anyway, I don't know if you ever golf with a 119, but it's
Master.
interesting. And we just played with the 119. We didn't have drivers, mid-range, putters. I mean, it was like one disc, like you throw the 119, you mark it, then you throw it again, and then you putt with it. So when Innova created the disc, the bevel edge disc, and you threw it, and all of a sudden you're laying underneath the basket. That was amazing. All of a sudden you say, "Oh, well, I guess I can throw." Right? I mean,
people nowadays, they don't understand the struggle with the beveled edge or without the beveled edge.
yeah.
I'm saying.
But people nowadays can throw an AVR pretty far,
True.
And
But I mean, when the AVR came out, it was the maximum distance driver back in the day.
oh, I didn't know that.
In
I did
1984,
not
that was
know
like
that.
leading.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not max driver, but like,
Yeah, and it just has more depth. Like this 119, the grip is just kind of hard to grip, and it's just awkward. But man, you get a Wraith, 147 Wraith.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I'm a fan of the Wraith myself. without a doubt. So, again, we know that well, we know that Mark played in the World Frisbee Championship in the third one in 1976. Were you there? Were you part of that, or were you watching? Were you
I think I
supporting
was
or
working.
studying?
I think I was working or something, you know. Yeah, he won, and I wasn't there, and I wasn't at his world champion either. I was working.
Yeah.
So I had just graduated, and I was uh,
You just became a nurse in
yeah,
77. right?
yeah. I had just become a nurse, and I had to work. You know, we had to work weekends.
Okay, right.
So
I mean,
but
nowadays there's tournaments, there's 7 tournaments per course per weekend, but back then it was like one per state per month almost, you know. So if you were working that weekend, maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year, right?
yes.
So I
So
guess, yep, sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, no.
All right. Well, I was just going to jump right into that next. You know, there's several people that had huge influence and even lower numbers than yourself. That you know, we were just kind of wondering. Can you tell us a little bit about Joe Cahaw?
I I aspire to be like her, okay? Because she was, you know, we used to go to tournaments, and everyone would be sitting around the tournament waiting for Joe and Stork to arrive. They were like the royalty. And when
Yeah.
they arrived, then things happened. So she is always very gracious, such a good overall player. And she's always barefoot. So I didn't go that far. But she, you know, I dream about freestyle still, about being graceful and being able to lead. And she was so flexible, you know, and very good player. Very good, very fun to play with. Not everyone was fun to play with. If you're, and that's not a reflection on them. It's a reflection. I was raised in team sports, and I was, you know, baseball player, volleyball player, field hockey player. And when you're a team player, you know, it's not all on you. And so then you play a sport where it's just you. It can be very intimidating.
Sure.
And um, and so Joe was not intimidated. Tita, Beth, Michelle Murphy, they're all very supportive. You know, like you can do this, piece of cake. And Michelle Marini.
Yes.
It's always fun to play with Michelle Marini. She is like the ultimate pro. She's very focused, and I'm like the kid out in left field chasing butterflies. I've always been trying to be professional, but Tita said that ship has already sailed. So I try to focus. It's my goal to be more professional, and
Yeah. You know what? I'd stick to just having that smile and having a good time.
Yeah, that's
all right.
works. It
That's
works
what you
for
should
us.
focus on. Smiling and having a good time. So okay, so there's a couple other people that we wanted you to tell us a little bit about. How about Gail McCall?
I love Gail McCall. Um, I played with her a lot of times um, in overall tournaments, and she is just like the ultimate athlete and very encouraging, such a good player.
Hmm.
Just such strength. I mean, just such strength and so healthy. I used to say, I gotta get healthy. So, and very, you know, she just talked like your best friend, you know, you could talk to her. She was able to share things. Yeah, you might want to consider this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is from
Oh, there she is.
1976. This is our
Yes, look at
local
that flexibility. And
award.
she's the one who is she credited with behind the back throw? Is she the one who first did the behind the back mark? Or Joe Cahill? Either Joe Cahill or Gail McCall behind the back.
Well, I mean, I did when I first went to Ann Arbor for the Great Lakes Open in 1995. That was my first chance to meet Gail. I didn't know who she was at the time. I was really new into the sport, and this is my first time in Michigan playing in a tournament, and I was a little nervous. I was AM2, and it turns out she just came over to talk. I guess she saw I was nervous, so she just started talking with me, and it turned out we went to the same high school.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, that just kind of, I forgot everything about my nerves. I just had fun for the rest of the day. It was just,
She was like that. She knew how to center people. She really knew how to center you, like just speak to where you were at. And I was sorry when we lost her because she was just such a good person, beautiful woman. And speaking of Canada women, do you know Joanne Gallagher?
we're hoping to get her onto the show sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah.
My Joanne Gallagher story
Okay.
is we went to the overall tournament in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm thinking it was 2000, either 1993, maybe 1993, but our son went with us. But again, I'm kind of a wishy-washy, timid person when I'm normal. When I'm mad, forget it. I'm terrible. But anyway, I played with her, and I hope you don't mind bad language, but
We don't.
she said to me, Susie, you're holding back. That's what she said. You're holding back. You need to get up on the tee and throw the fucker. Just throw the fucker. She changed my game. I mean it. She really helped my game. Tita has helped my putting, but Joanne Gallagher, I attribute to giving me the courage to just huck it.
Nice.
She saw that I could huck it.
That's
Kind of
awesome.
neat when people see things in you that you don't know that you have.
No,
It's nice when they can turn the light on for you too. I mean, I think it's equally as good for the person that's receiving and the person that's giving in that situation too.
and she's
Yeah.
known around here at least, and maybe around the disc world as Mama Joe. So,
Oh,
you know,
is she?
yeah. So she's got that keen insight, wisdom, vision.
She's so gracious. I haven't seen her since then, but I keep her in my heart.
Well, when we do have her on the show, I'm gonna make sure to send her one of the
If
stories.
she remembers that.
Yeah, I'll ask her for sure about that.
Well, it's nice. Jumping back to what you were saying about Gail McCall, I I always remember I just dealt with her mostly from a business standpoint, with Discraft, and also like Paul did at the Great Lakes Open, maybe the first couple of times I was there. But I had lunch with an old friend from the entertainment business today, and he mentioned something about having lunch with the owner of his company, and a lot of people in the business would be like, "Oh wow, you hang out with him and you talk," and he goes, "Yeah, we're friends," and that was an instant reminder from what you just said about Gail. Like, she talks to you and she's another person that plays the sport. Yeah, she's your friend. And that's one of the things about this game and about the people involved with it that like there's only a couple of times where I've heard people go, "Oh, well, he's too good for hanging out with us," or "She's too good." And like, you don't hear that, I mean, there's certainly personality conflicts. I mean, there's always going to be when you have this many people getting together, but in general and as a whole, our group is really, really inclusive and super outgoing in that manner. And just like, yeah, like I mean, we've already keyed in on 3 or 4 different things, like the whole couch surfing thing too. I mean, that's just some of the fiber of the fabric of this group of people that I think we're all incredibly fortunate to be a part of, and so that's really cool that you pointed that out about Gail too. So there was one more person we wanted to throw out at you to tell a little story about. How about telling us a story about Monica Liu?
Well, I don't know if I sent Paul a picture of the girls. Maybe let me show you a picture of her. If you can see that, probably not, huh? She is, see,
Okay.
Cheryl Payne there with her glasses, Cheryl Newland.
Yeah.
And there's a young woman there with her hands on her chin. You see
Okay.
her?
Okay, on the
Yep.
right.
Okay, that's Monica Liu.
Okay.
And she was incredible distance thrower. And even her, you know, she was very focused, very competitive, but she gave me the time of day. She did. You know, like I was like, Monica, you throw so far. How do you do that? And she let me shadow her. So very gracious, very amazing competitor.
Now we didn't just pick these three names out of the hat just for people out there who are watching. Um, Joe, Gail, Monica were three of the top elite frisbee
Yes,
players.
yes,
Gail was the first I think the first female world masters frisbee master, and certainly the first non-U.S. citizen world frisbee
yes,
master.
yes,
And Monica Liu at the time held multiple records. Monica and Joe would often go head to head for first place at the World Championships.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is when you're kind of coming into the world of frisbee. These are the brightest lights in the firmament at the time.
yeah.
The fact that they were so personable, the fact that they were so approachable, it speaks volumes about the character, like Mace was saying, and hopefully we'll never lose that. We'll never lose that kind of intimacy and familiarity.
Yeah, I hope not. You know, I hope not.
So listen, I want to take you to your. First of all, let me just say the PDGA has done an amazing job with archive records, with preserving
Yes,
records.
yes.
I would not be able to do half of what I'm doing without using that as a starting point. That being said, there are great errors and lacks and holes in the PDJ database. Certain information's been held back. So if someone's just looking at, say, what your lifetime stats are, what any player's lifetime stats are, it could be skewed by missing tournaments and missing reporting. But the first thing that does exist on the PDJ database under your name officially is the 1978 World Frisbee Championships, the IFA WFC. Your list is playing pro there, though.
That is an error on their part. I'll send them an email because that was Mark. That was Mark.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure where I am in there, but I remember playing with Joe and I don't know who else was playing, but I was way down the line. I was way down the line.
Because
So I did not win that.
that
Okay.
makes a lot of
I
sense
did
now.
not. Yeah, no, I did not, I could not do that. I know I saw that and I asked Mark, I don't remember this. And he goes, oh, that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, just I was looking at it. I'm like 129. That's the same score as Gail McCall, who won the women's division.
exactly. Yeah,
It's
no,
okay.
no, I don't know how that came about. You know, I don't. So I'm
But
looking at the wins. I'm looking at the wins. Yeah, that was Mark.
Okay.
And I think in 78, I was 31st. So that kind of tells you.
So, as your first competition in the world official in the World Frisbee Championships, did you do all the events?
Yes.
Okay. And what were your favorites? What'd you like to do? What'd you get geared up for?
I got geared up for golf, which was what I played on a regular basis, and distance. I really worked on doing the turnaround and distance.
Okay.
And we did discathon. So I used to run around the Rose Bowl. There's a 3-mile, 3.5, there's a 5K track around the Rose Bowl around the front of it. and I would run that to get in shape for discathon.
Wow.
And so, and we would practice discathon at Lacey Park. Is that where discathon was created, Lacey Park? I have to ask Stork, but I think that's where he came up with discathon, was at Lacey Park, because Dr. I, you know, he had all these young kids going to his Frisbee class, and he wanted them running and getting in shape. So I think he might have been a part of creating discathon.
You know, when you think about it, being the nexus of the Frisbee world at that time. I know there was offshoots in because Stork was in Jersey. There were people in Jersey with the Velasquez brothers as well, and of course Michigan and Rochester, and certain pockets here and there. But all of the key players, all of the key names, all of the things that went down happened. You were at the eye of the hurricane, but you probably didn't even know how centrally important it was at the time, did you?
I didn't.
I
I was
love it.
just hanging out, being one of the guys, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the disc. It was fun. And they used to go to Arcadia Park, Mark and Jerry Gear and Tim and Steve. What was Steve's last name? No. Steve that you guys play DDC with. Anyway, that's where DDC was born, was at this baseball field in Arcadia. And they moved it to Lacey Park, but they tried playing just one person DDC, and Mark mastered it. It was too easy. He was killing everyone. They said, "Oh, this isn't gonna work." So then they started doing two people on a court, and it was such a good game.
Wow.
Such a good game. And they were, yeah.
I love it. They had to throw an extra player in just to slow Mark down.
Ask Stork about Mark. Mark, it was boring, Mark said. Stork, I don't know if you know this, but Stork is a sociologist, and he did his thesis on games. And he finds games for Mark to do because Mark is very dexterous and hand-eye coordination. He finds games for Mark to master.
Well, one of our bucket list guests to have this year would be Stork, and so there's a wonderful dimension to talk to him about.
You want to hear my Stork story?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so they were no longer going to have the North American series at Oak Grove. So Stork told the club, which Mark was a member of, Mark and I, we have this Frisbee thing. I have to show you guys. This is part of history. It's called the Oak Grove Times.
Oh wow, look at that.
Okay. Craig Walters put that together, and the original list of Gophers are here, the original members.
Wow.
Anyway, I don't know if you can see this. Kind of, I know, those are the original members.
Look at that.
The Wintercorns, John Sutherland, Bruce Sisson, Scott Stokely, let's see, Bill Nash, a lot of people. Anyway, Al Bonapane. But Stork wanted to make sure that SoCal was not left out of the loop. He was from, the East Coast. He knew how the East Coast guys are. Paul and Mike. He didn't want us SoCal people to be left in the dust. So he said, you guys have to have a tournament every year at the beginning of everything to hold your place marker. And so Mark and Bill Nash and Russ Hamilton and a bunch of guys got together and they planned the first WinterTime. But I had other plans, right? And so I wrote Stork a letter saying, Stork, if you want to do this tournament, you need to do it yourself. Okay. And his secretary said, Dan, I don't know if you want to read this, you know. And it's been my history, but Tita said that boat has already sailed and Stork is still my friend.
Okay.
But I want you to know that he's responsible for us holding a place in disc golf history.
So
You know,
it's
Mark took the torch and carried it.
wow.
But Stork, yeah,
Stork made him grab it first.
yes, yes, yes.
Well, before we jump onto that, because definitely that's a really wonderful and interesting topic to jump into, the whole Oak Grove and the Wintertime Open. But we just want to wrap up the pre-beveled edge tournament idea, and especially because most of those tournaments were about the overall. And as the years from '76 on progressed, you would have specialized tournaments that would have one or two events. But prior to that, they were pretty well all over overall events. And you had mentioned DDC.
Yes.
So you in with the Women Masters, you were the world rank number 2, right behind or leading with Beth Varish. What did you play often?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you play?
Wow.
Oh,
You know,
sorry,
I
you're
quit
right
playing
behind.
DDC when Beth Varish moved to Florida.
Okay.
I quit playing because it broke my heart.
Was she was your favorite person to play DDC with?
Well, I didn't play with her I didn't get to play with her because Tita was her partner,
Okay.
but I always played against them, and she always said, Susie, you can do this, you can do. She's such a good coach. She is very good coach.
Would she coach you while she was playing against you?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's how she is. Yes. My best tournament of DDC was in Ithaca. It was an overall tournament. And I played with Mary Grace Clark, who main name was Sorrentino. And she was a Frisbee woman in the 70s. She went to the Rose Bowl, and Sandy Gass and Paul Reineke will tell you that she still plays down in Florida. They see her on the course. Okay, but she was my DDC partner in Ithaca, and she's like this fierce little bulldog. Part of DDC is the attack, as you guys know, and I've always been a front, you know, and so I had to play back, and she was just like burning Beth and Tita. I think we beat her one game. I had never done that. And Beth was worried. Beth was really worried, and Tita had to talk with her, and I don't know what she said. But after they buried us, but
Oh, okay.
anyway. Mm.
Well, Tina, for her, I think DDC was her the favorite game that she loves to play, and certainly something I wish I've only seen it played. I've never tried it myself, and I regret that because everybody we've talked to, they say their face lights up when they start talking about DDC.
My second in line, which I felt I was, you know, competitive, was MTA. I love to throw MTA. Just get out there and huck it and run as hard as you can and just get the edge and catch it. It's pretty magical. And Mandy Carrillo, she's the one who helped me throw my best self-caught flight. It's like MTA, but as you measure the you know what it is, self-caught flight. And it was 22 meters.
Wow.
And I'm like running, and she says, you're playing catch with the mountains. So I'm throwing it up to the mountains. I have to run and catch it so hard, 22 meters at a dead run. And I stretch out my hand, and the disc just settles on my fingers.
Perfectly like a drone.
Nice.
So I do like MTA and self-taught play. I can't do them anymore, but I liked them.
That's awesome.
Well, so what about freestyle? And
I have to
according
say I dream freestyle.
yeah, I heard you say that earlier, and and it made me think about how long it had been. How long has it been since you've done any freestyling?
Mark and I freestyle whenever we go to the beach.
Well,
Nice.
cool.
Play that wind.
Body rolls.
Freestyle to me,
Yeah.
like,
So it's been summer. We did it in the summer.
sweet.
You know, you like to show off. You're at the beach and you're playing, and someone throws you a disc and you just nail the lid, and they go, "What?"
How do you do that?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Especially kids. What?
Freestyle lends itself to the spectacle. It arrests people's attention right away. And so, when you think about the big Frisbee gala, the big closing pieces at the Rose Bowl, freestyle was always one of the big, spectacle closers.
I'll never forget Jens and Erwin Velasquez at the Rose Bowl. Okay, we're sitting in the stands, and they played the Doobie Brothers. What the people need is a way to make them smile. When they threw that disc to that song, the crowd went nuts. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, they were phenomenal.
Wow.
And they still are. I mean, they still got some moves. Even Irwin does.
So that's interesting that you bring that up because it seems to me when I was doing the deep dive research on the World Frisbee Championships, a lot of times the reports would talk about the social scene, and you'd be at the Cal State campus. That'd be the place where people were hanging out, and it'd be spontaneous guts, shower guts, or outdoor mini guts, or hallway guts, things like that. One year, the Velasquez brothers, I'm not sure which one, I think it was Jens, led everybody or taught everybody how to disco dance. In the 1980, one quick note said Andy Tate got upset by the international chugging star Jens Velasquez in the traditional Sunday night guzzle off. Were you guys there for some of the shenanigans? Did you witness any of those things?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Her smile
My
got bigger
only
and bigger
memory
as she.
of shenanigans is Paul Thompson up your way, Minnesota way. He always had to save the children auction during the overalls. And he went through the stage where he's really into being nude. And so you go to his you go to his room to give money for Save the Children, and there he was. So, but I did not do shower guts. I did not do guzzling. Yeah, I had a son then.
So for sure, there's got to be always somebody responsible. But I'm just reporting the after reports and just
Oh,
making it
yeah.
funny. Now the last question about the Frisbee Championships before we leave. 1982, Rutgers, first time it's ever left California, and as it turned out, it was the last time. I don't think people really at the time felt the impending ending of the World Frisbee Championships. The sale of Lamo, I think, was being rumbled in the background. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about was you took third in golf that year. You made the finals with Joanne Loftus, Judy Horowitz, and Michelle Marini. You've already mentioned Michelle. What about Joanne and Judy? What kind of impressions did they leave on you as players? I know Judy had this in the early 80s.
They are very amazing players, and just very encouraging, very easy. It was just like a weekly round of golf. That's probably why I did do better than normal, is that it was like playing a weekly round of golf with some friends.
Wow.
And very personable. I think I saw Judy at Virginia State about 10 years ago. It was like no time had passed. I haven't seen Joanne Loftus for a while, but yeah, but very easy to play with, very encouraging, very fun to watch.
How did that feel taking a podium finish there at the?
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, I'm so competitive, but I don't always bring it to the course. As you know, it's so hard to keep that edge and just play the course and not get caught up in the gamemanship. And there's a lot of gamemanship that goes on in disc golf, and you just have to play your game. And when that can happen, it's so much fun. It's fun to do well. You want to do well.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you know, people have said, why don't you drop down to amateur? Because the amateur women my age, all the women my age play amateur. I've never played amateur. I can't move down to amateur and play. I can't.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat that Michelle is turning 70 this year, Cheryl Newland, and Lori Cloyes. She is an amazing disc golfer out of Las Vegas, and she's been my friend forever. Such a good competitor. Such a good competitor. I'm always like 10 to 15 strokes behind her. But one time I played with her, I think it was in Flagstaff, I was only 5 strokes behind her. You know, I shouldn't have been paying attention, but you look at the scores afterwards and you go, I'm going to get there someday. Maybe when I'm 80, I will get there. I don't
Well,
know.
Right on.
It's an amazing journey that the sport has taken so far, and it's great to see. You know, when you look back and in the records, you see the first World Championships. There was just basically, I think there was the one division. There might have been Masters, and then women were added in '83. And you know, as we've aged, we've grown with the divisions as well, to where you can have at the United States Women's Championships in Burlington last September, something like 24 divisions and 400 competitors, and all of them women. You come from a time when you might have been one or two or three, four players, and now it's starting to percolate. It's starting to grow, and of course a lot of that you have to take credit rightly because you were one of the ones that kept nourishing the fire and passed along to the next generation. That's one of the most important and unsung tasks.
I think that Tita and Cheryl have been instrumental in that. Me, I've always just been a follower, but I see women playing. I encourage them, come out to our weeklies, you know, keep at it. And so it's nice to see the sport grow where women feel, oh, I can do this. And it's really nice because I mean, at Oak Grove, there's at least one woman per foursome per tee on the weekends.
Wow.
And there's women playing. They just don't want to compete, but they could. Try to get my granddaughter into it. She's so
Nice.
good.
Well, it certainly does seem like the way that the money is really increasing and spreading around, that it is a viable option if you want to, you know, take it seriously. Just as alternately, it's still a viable option to not take seriously and have a lot of fun with and go out for these league nights or just go out with your friends. The most important thing is just to go out and play.
For sure.
Amen. Amen, brother.
Okay,
Well, you know,
let's
we've talked about this a little bit too, from that same standpoint. It's, you know, if you look at other women's sports, their game is on the rise in a lot of different areas, like college and pro basketball, soccer, all these different sports that you used to see a noticeable difference when you watched it between men's and the women's games, and it's not as noticeable anymore. You know, the women's game is definitely rose up on, you know, to another level, and in disc golf and in a lot of other sports, and it's not as tough as sell as it used to be.
Oh, so many, it's so funny. So many men that I know watch the Disc Golf Network and watch the women. And they're like, damn, you know, damn.
Yeah, that's
How
true.
did they throw so far? You know? So
Well,
you're right.
well, we were at
And the
the
women and the US women's soccer team is so incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, they really have come a long ways. And basketball, that's yeah. I got recruited for field hockey, and I don't even know if they play it anymore
oh,
here.
right.
But I was a good field hockey player.
You got recruited for college?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get a scholarship for that?
No.
Okay.
They it was through the city college and there was no tuition.
Oh, right
So
on.
yeah,
Look
yeah.
at you getting scouted early. I love it.
That's my claim to fame.
So
My
listen,
claim.
let's jump into Oak Grove. Let's talk about this is where it all began, and this is where you especially the both of you are most closely connected in terms of the history of the sport. Um, First question that I have for you guys is, what's the deal with the tees, these hexagon-shaped tees? Do you know the story of why they were originally shaped that way? Every other tee box that I've ever seen is a large rectangle.
Mark, it's Mark, my husband. When our son went to college and he came one day, he called us. He said, I know what it is now. Dad has ADHD. He thinks outside the box. So when they went to pour the teas, Mark is a visionary. He said, it has to be that way in case we change the direction we want to go. And he still is an advocate of that.
Wow.
He still thinks that it should be that way. It shouldn't be like this. You should have different options.
That's beautiful. That's
No, it's
it,
not a bad call. And
yeah.
most places want to have multiple pins everywhere anyway, so it's not, I mean, on every hole, excuse me, not everywhere, but multiple pins on every hole.
No, I know. Yeah, yes. And we do have that now, but it's usually the same direction. Sometimes out on the desert at Oak Grove, that picture you took, you could go different ways. Yes. So that's the story behind that.
All right, thank you. That was always certainly one of those tidbits that crawl the internet. You know, why are they like that? And then
You can attribute that to Mark Horn.
okay, now we know definitively. All right, well, let's just jump, Mace. Let's just jump into the wintertime still open stories.
All right, that sounds like a good move. So man, I mean, that's one of the things for like the last day and a half. I mean, I've been winding up my Christmas light business yesterday, and we'll almost be done with it. I mean, we're almost done with it, but I was like, okay, so what am I going to talk to you about? What I want to hear something. I mean, I can't even begin. Like, tell a story about this photo. You know, I mean, I just can't
Um,
only imagine how many stories you have about this event over 40 plus years, you know?
uh, that green international harvester there, right there, is what we stole our disc out of. And this is the second wintertime open. And so Dan Mangoni is in the corner, right in the corner,
Down here,
bottom corner. That's Dan Mangoni and his wife June, and they're selling
here.
discs. I think that's who it is, but they look like HDXs, which could be freestyle discs.
Okay,
And Jerry Gear is over there telling a story.
right here.
George Morris is standing in front of the van. And Al Bonapane is right behind George. He's the one who sent me this picture. He's in the yellow shirt behind George at the table with the hat on. And I'm not sure where Mark is, probably behind George. But look at the bell-bottom pants and the short shorts. The guy sitting on the rock is Greg Barnacote. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, I
Right
know
here.
Barnacote.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I eventually had to get out of disc golf because of his back.
Oh.
But yeah,
Yeah, I remember when I first started touring, Barnacote was out there, and he would always he never travel. I remember he never traveled with anybody. He just traveled on his own. At least when the events that I was going to. But yeah, I remember that guy.
that oak tree is still there, thank goodness.
Wow,
We
really?
lost 42 trees the last 2 years because of the drought and the beetle. So hopefully they've planted a lot more. And oh God, this is see we just sales. I have that little sign down there. It says sales,
Sales,
and I'm
very
not
good.
sure who the young kid is, and I'm not sure who the young guy is here. But I have cleats on because we had MTA, and I did MTA when I wasn't selling disc, and I didn't know I was pregnant at the time with my son Christopher.
Wow.
So anyway, so I'm just selling disc.
So
It's
when
hard to
you
believe I was young then.
now when you were saying that back in the day that there would be more of an overall to the Wintertime Open, we're used to it being usually the traditional tour starter, the
Yes,
and traditionally through the 80s and into the early 90s, it was one of the top three, if not top five, richest events. But here we are. This is Guts here, and there you got was that Stork sitting down being the line judge?
yeah, he's the line judge. And Mark is with the sunglasses, and Scott Zimmerman is just to his left, and Peter Sontag is there, ready to catch the disc. Your cowboy,
Well, everybody
birthday
knows which one
Yorkshire.
Peter Sontag is. He
And
still
he
has
still
that exact
plays. I
amount of
saw him
hair.
in, yeah, I saw him in Flagstaff this year. Said,
He's
Peter,
got
you
a little
haven't
gray, but he still
changed.
has exactly that much hair. Like it's never wavered.
Yeah. And this is the guy in the red shorts is Joey Hudaklan, who's still a
Okay.
very formidable disc golf player. He started in New York, I believe, but now he's in Santa Barbara. But very, very good guitar player too. And I'm not sure who the other two guys are. They might be from Texas.
Hmm.
Do
Now
you
you were
recognize them, Mace?
Mm,
No,
no,
no.
this is so I know that the PDJ preserves only the golf side of the archives. Do you guys have all of the other tournament winners that your own personal know?
When did we start keeping records, Mark?
I think I had everything from 91 on.
91 on.
Okay.
Um, I started running 5Ks, and they would always send the results to all the competitors. And I said to Mark, we need to do this with the wintertime. We need to send results of the tournaments to all the players uh, to encourage them. And that's when we started being serious about it.
Well,
And it really does help grow the sport to know what your ranking is, what your rating. PDGA has done such a good job with that.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why it has grown is keeping track of things. I'm sorry that we didn't keep track of things.
Well, I when I was looking through the records, and my own resources are not vast by any means, but the first any kind of results that I ever came across was from 1984, and the only thing that I saw was that at that time there were 201 or 200 plus overall total entrants for the whole event. So it was kind of it. Just for me, I'm a real history geek. I'm a buff about it all. I love to dive into the stats and the numbers, and when I can't find it, it's just this enigmatic, vast question mark for me that it's It's not going to drive me crazy with curiosity, but pretty close.
Well, it got to be so big. I mean, the NorCal boys would come down, and we had to put people. We still had AMs playing with the. We didn't have AMs, but we had so many players that we would put them. We would put. We would fill up Sylmar. We'd fill up Sylmar. And we'd fill up Oak Grove, and Danny McGinnis and Stork would start the players off at Sylmar, and Mark would start them off at Oak Grove. Then after the first round, they would drive down with the results to Oak Grove. And the other people from Oak Grove would go up there. And so that was the first day. There was 2 rounds, and we always had a cut. And one of my favorite memories, Mark would put it on our answering machine what the cut was, and people would call in to see, and you would hear this, or they'd be so happy that they made the cut. Because the final
Interesting.
was just 2 rounds at Oak Grove. But, it got to where when they started AMS, do you guys know when they started the amateur division?
No, it's just one
I wanna
round
say
of the
like
final.
Oh,
88,
one round and final.
89.
But when did they start AMS, PDJ?
Late 80s, I guess, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Well,
think the first AM
the
championship.
AMS grew so fast that eventually we said, we can't handle all these people. So we'd have pros one weekend and AMS one weekend.
Sure.
We had to do it separately because the AMS didn't have any spots, and they were so into it. I mean, they were
So the one of the great things about when you see the photographs of Oak Grove and you hear the legends, you can almost hear the wind rustling, the sunshine in the leaves and the grass. But like you've already mentioned, usually the Wintertime Open is hosted such deplorable conditions that it's led to the rise of the nickname Soap Grove. In the 8th annual, I think that's 1986, the report comes in, the opening golf round was played in almost continuous rain on the most difficult Oak Grove event in history. But this is where you introduce the idea of a cut for the final 9 and scratch start.
yes.
What were some of so first of all, there was a final, the top 3, which is an interesting decision to make, and then to make it a scratch decision. Can you talk to us about what was it like coming up with those decisions, and what was the reaction? Did people embrace, or did they rebel?
Amazingly enough, they didn't, okay, because it was the Lissamans, okay, and they were pretty cocky. Sorry, Johnny and Greg. Is it Greg?
Jeff.
Jeff.
Jeff was
Jeff.
They were pretty cocky, they just
And they
said,
were 2 of the 4.
yeah, make it scratch. We're gonna win. Jeff said, I'm gonna win, no problem, right? So amazingly enough, they were all for it. I don't think anybody was against it, was it, Mark? Because they got money for the 3 rounds they played, but then the scratch was like a big bonus.
That was extra money.
It was extra money.
So, okay. So they already had to pay. That makes sense then. I can see why they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I thought that too, though. When I saw that, I was going,
After the first year they didn't do that and
The person leading after 3 rounds was not happy when they didn't win.
Was
They had a 9-stroke lead, and then they end up getting 3rd, so they didn't get much money. So we created a bonus for the leader after 3 rounds.
Okay.
Of $200. So then if they came in 2nd, they still got the same amount of money as the first person.
Was that Randy Ammon?
Randy Ammon.
Randy Ammon had led for 3 rounds. And
Okay.
then I think
No, it wasn't Ammon.
wasn't Ammon?
It's the guy who started SoCal.
What's his name? Whoever started SoCal, John Earhart.
Earhart.
Okay.
John
Right.
Earhart. He was the unhappy customer. Which, you
It's
can
understandable.
understand. Yeah, it's understandable. So Mark changed it. Here's a picture of once Oak Grove with Scott Riley and his wife.
Earl Weaver.
Yeah. And he still runs his tournament up there in Berkeley, which
Yeah,
I
he
have yet
stopped by
to go.
earlier.
Huh?
He stopped by he was watching earlier.
Oh, he's such
He's
a
an
good
old friend
guy.
of mine from the tour too. Like
Oh, he's such a good
we used,
guy. He's
we used to call
always,
him Earl Weaver.
what'd you call him?
Earl Weaver. Because he used to
What's
use
the
the whole
story?
word. He'd use the whole road. He was all
Oh,
over the place. Dude, you're following Scott. You're behind Earl Weaver.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's good times. Really good times for sure.
So
He was
listen.
so loyal to us.
Oh,
He always came. Him and Jeff Fielder, they always were loyal to us.
nice.
And Paul Macbeth. You know, Paul Macbeth, when he became big time, he still would come back to WinterTime.
Nice.
I don't think he's been since we gave it up, but he used to always take care of us.
When one of the questions I'm so curious about this, I saw in the reports on that 1986 event, Sammy Farrens ends up winning the overall because he edged Donnie Wallace by a point, and he quote took home the Casablanca ceiling fan as the overall prize. What was that about?
My sister, I have 7 sisters, and number
Wow.
7, yeah, number one, she worked for Casablanca, and so we wanted to get sponsors, and so we asked her, and so we figured, you know, a fan signifies the air, you know, and so every year, John Wilczek won a fan one year, and
Nice.
it was a big thing to win the fan.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Casablanca fan. And they sponsored us for how many years? A long time. Until
13 or 14.
yeah. They got taken over by Hunter Fan, I think. But they sponsored us for a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right on.
Interesting. That's cool. I never heard about the fan. So one of the things that Paul dug up that I think is really fascinating, over 46 years, there's been Mark, yourself, uh, terrible with the eyes right now, John Tompkins, Steve Rico, and Mike Jewell as the tournament directors. I think that's pretty impressive. I mean, I guess it's probably got to be that way in order to get, to 46 events where for the long time there was 1 or 2 people really doing the work and really, and continuing to get to keep the event going. And then it's easy to say, hey, jump in here. Come here, Stevie. Let's go.
As a TD, you know
Oh,
that
yeah.
you kind of have to do one thing to keep it, in control. But we could not have done 40 years without our son Christopher helping, without Oak Grove Club helping. They always maintain the course. We had a homeless man. I don't know if you've ever heard this story. His name was Rainbow Man, very intelligent young man. Took too much acid one day at Oak Grove and became homeless. And so he would see UFOs, and he was very interesting man. But he was our watchman at night. He knew who altered the course. Yes,
Wow.
we never knew
Really?
people altered the course. And he would come in the morning for coffee, but he would tell us who altered the courses. I
Wow.
won't name any names, but his name, we called him Rainbow Man, but he was I don't even remember his name anymore. I'm sorry. Bill Lugo. Very old Spanish family. But he's buried at Oak Grove, his
Wow.
ashes. Yeah. And then, just the club. You can't do it by yourself. You can't. I mean, you have to stay focused, and Mark does really well by himself because he likes the way he has a way to do it, and that's how he likes it. And the Oak Grove Club was very gracious in surrounding him and helping him, you know, keep that going.
Well, I
That's
know
awesome.
it does definitely takes a village to raise a child or an idiot, depending on who you are. I'm of the latter category.
And the
But
people, you know, people come
Mhm.
back and they're so gracious.
That's and just like you say, when you have far distance travelers who are so loyal, you get loyal to them too, and you know you continue to do an event. You may have something else come up in your life, or maybe just it gets more onerous each year to do it. But you think, well, people put this time away as in their yearly vacation for, we gotta be there for them too, right? It's a great burden, and the fact that you guys did it for 40 years is just absolutely incredible.
It was a blessing, you know. It was self-perpetuating,
That's
you
awesome.
know. You
So
know, you get what you give.
I know you're a very compassionate person, and I imagine that's probably what led you to being a nurse, and certainly what helped you become a great nurse is having a level of compassion and empathy. Um, how difficult was it for you personally to see Scott Stokely fall into bad habits, and how amazing was it for you guys to witness him kind of have that redemption, especially with the '87 win? He'd kind of drifted into some hard times, but he came back at it. What was it like with Scott? I know he had mentioned you guys specifically when we had him on the show.
Well,
As people
you
always ask.
know, you can only do too much. You can only do so much for someone at a certain time of their life. You can just be there and have that relationship and let them know that you're there if they need you. I knew what Scott was. I mean, I know he took care of my son. I knew who he was inside. So the world gets a hold of people, takes them down the wrong road. You just pray for grace and mercy to that they will make it through. And it refines them. It refines us all. Life refines us all. And I'm so happy to see him as such an ambassador of the sport now. I mean, to see that is it's answered prayer. I mean, God is good. You know, to see him where he's at. He could be this bitter, down and out person, and he's just this positive role model in the sport. Awesome.
That's really well put. There's definitely it's such a great redemptive story in the trajectory of his life and his career, and he's a battler, and he's definitely from when I was from early in the game, one of my personal heroes in the game.
Yes, it's such a phenomenal player, and you know he pushed people away, but I was surprised that he mentioned us. I really was, because I always hoped and prayed that he would find his way, but he didn't talk to us much during those years. It was kind of like, but he made it through. Yes, 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 Scott. You know, that's what you want people to do. Rise above it.
Absolutely.
To rise above it. Just shake that old world loose.
Well,
Right
listen,
on.
we've kept you on now an hour and a half. We don't want to take up
You
too much
guys
more
are
of your
so
time.
good.
We really appreciate you and you sharing your stories and your light, and doing it all with such style and grace yourself.
Hey, so there's one thing we did skip, and I really think we should go ahead and mention this and let you tell us one more story before we let you go. And well, as we continue to interview all y'all from the Southern California area, I mean, going back to Scott, Scott, obviously Sam Farron's, Crazy John Brooks, and obviously you ladies as well. This name just keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up, and it's Dan Stork Roddick. And there's a lot of other names that continue to come up too, but his he's almost get the same billing as all the other people combined. And so just tell us a little bit about that common fiber in so many of y'all's stories is Stork, and obviously it goes all the way up to our stories too, because so much credit has to be given to him for where we're at with the game and with all the games that are associated with that. So just give us a little bit about that as a send off, about what it's been like all these years, knowing that, oh yeah, well, it's me and Mark, but hey, look, it's also me, Mark, and Stork, or it's me, Mark, following Stork, and you know what I mean? And so just give us a little bit of insight on that.
Well, I mean, just at the beginning when he worked for Whammo and the little office, the IFA office, and Tim Selinsky worked there, and Al Bonapane, and
Joe.
Joe Cahill, and Stork. He's always had a vision, and he's the type of person, I don't even know how to describe him. He's a very humble man. No, people don't realize, like you guys see it because you're archivists, and you see where he's been in it all the way.
Yeah.
He has been in it all the way. And I kind of just take him for granted, I Tita treats him really good. I'm glad. But me, I just take him for granted, which I shouldn't. But he's just such a good friend. He's a visionary. He has always been a visionary. And he always is like, if you see something, contribute. I mean, he builds people up. He builds people up, encourages them to do things. I mean, Mark and I made it through this because Stork, even from the very beginning, the first Wintertime Open, when it was all done, we eat at this place called Shogun, and Stork would always come with us, always at the end, because he was the instigator. I call him the instigator. Mark doesn't like it because Mark wants to take credit too, and he should. He should. But Stork was the instigator. And anyway, they went to Shogun, and I didn't go. I don't know why, but I think I was pregnancy sick. But they were at Shogun, and they got drunk, and they closed the place down. And I think I had to go pick up Mark. I didn't. Oh, well, they they closed. Oh, he had one drink, but he was anyway. Stork,
That part of the story's already out, Mark. Don't worry about it.
that ship has sailed.
Yes, that ship has sailed.
But Stork comes to the Shogun with us every year after Wintertime Open.
That's awesome.
If it's not COVID, he has issues, but so he can't go in crowded places. But Stork, I think let me see what I wrote about Stork, because I don't want to forget what a Stork is. But he's been there through it all. You guys are right, through it all. And he will be there as long as he can, because it's his sport.
Yeah.
And he's constantly seeing ways to make it better. Like Paul Mary. Paul Mary wants his basket, but Stork wants us to, be good citizens of disc golf. He really has upheld that too. That nobody get hurt out there.
Well, the term elder statesman certainly applies to a gentleman like Stork, and I've only had the privilege of meeting him once or twice, and never really had any sustained conversation. But we do hope we can have him on the show.
Oh, he's fun. He's so fun. He's so.
When we had Tammy Pelicane on the show last week, and we asked her, "Do you have any Sue Horn stories?" And she didn't. The only thing that she could tell us was one time Tammy was 19 or 18. She was traveling. These are the Lacey Park days, and Tammy was in town, I guess, in advance of a WFC. And you came up to Tammy. You were a total stranger. You introduced yourself and offered to show her around the course. And she said that for her, a young girl traveling and just having you come up and you're open, you're comforting, you're compassionate way really set her at home, and she was able to compete that weekend largely because of how you introduced, welcomed her. Do you remember that?
I remember Tammy. I don't remember that, but she was a dynamo. I mean, I was fascinated by this tiny little person that had so much energy. And your introduction, I didn't hear the whole story, but I heard your introduction because I had to go somewhere. Describes her perfectly. Hurricane. I mean, she was a hurricane. I mean, she was indomitable. And for her to have gone through all that she did, and I'm so thankful that I was on my best behavior that day. You can ask Dave Dunn Pace. I have not always been on my best behavior.
Well,
Okay,
neither has he. I mean, come on.
well, yeah, that's
I
true.
know, but so I'm glad that people remember good things.
So one last thing before we let you go. Our next guest is Cheryl Newland. Do you have any one immediate Cheryl Newland story that jumps out at you?
Pardon?
Do you have any one Cheryl Newland story that leaps to your mind right now that you'd like to share?
Yes.
Okay.
Her and her husband were staying at her house, and we had a dinner, and Stork came. And I have all these magnets and pictures of people on my refrigerator, and she's looking at it. And Stork comes up behind her, and she's tiny and he's huge. And he goes, "Can you see those? Can you, do you need a step stool?"
I don't even know her well enough
Oh,
to really know this, but I have a feeling I got a really good idea of what her response was because
I
I
think she
mean,
might have kicked him or
yeah, she
Yeah.
could have knocked him over, maybe. You never know. I mean,
You don't mess with Cheryl. Cheryl. But
she's,
I love
man,
Cheryl.
I
She
gotta
was
tell
so
you,
much fun.
I gotta tell you before we go, there's this and one other thing I want to tell you, but um that that session in that dressing room is one of my favorite of episodes of our whole thing so far. And part of it, like you really gave me the idea. I don't know if you remember this specifically, but it was like me, you at one end of the table, and I was at the other end, and Tita was between us. And you said to me, "Do you know Chris Brophy?" And I was like, "Hold on a second, wait, hold on. Before you go any further, Tita, I'm just going to turn it on. I'm going to introduce everybody, and I'm just going to let y'all go." And it really kind of came that I walked in that building. I didn't know what I was going to do. I talked to Tita. I still didn't know what I was going to do. I really had no idea because we've been doing shows like this. And, my background's in entertainment. My background's, I've had to improv more often than I can even mention just to get through the day. And it's fine. But I still really didn't know how I was going to pull that show off until that moment when you said, "Do you know Chris Brophy?" And I was like, "Of course I know Chris Brophy." And then I was like, you know what? This is just going to be freestyle and I'm going to let y'all go. And I really think that that's one of our best shows so far because y'all just told one story, then leapfrog to another story, then leapfrog to another story. And the Boxcar Mama obviously is epic,
I
but
had never heard that story.
that's such a great story. And that's
And I
just
didn't know
one of the
that
stories.
I didn't know that Dave Marini was the start of the FPA. I mean, it was you're right. You're
That was a
right.
great, that was
Dave.
just that was a
You're
great
right.
45 minutes, and funny because we call this the Good Times Hour, and that's one of the only episodes that's ever been under an hour. So the last thing I want to do real quickly, we've had a lot of people stop by on Facebook, and I'm just going to read some names, and then we can send you off and thank you so much for a great afternoon. But Rob Taltzman stopped by, Sylvia Volks, Melinda Ring, Chris Ellis, Chris Hill, Bruce Nisley, Fluff, Jason Jalonen, Will Romero, Dave Clapp, Scott Riley, Dave Himmeline, Keith Mason, Michelle Marini, John
Yeah.
Kirkland, Mom Marianne Wallace, Steve Mills, Chris Sprague, Matt Fitzwater, Michael Speaker, Daniel Zamora, Roger Veach, Jeff Jansky, Greg Brooks, Eric McCabe, Robbie Parker, Frank Ursino, Chris Ware, Dave Himmeline, Jim Tobish, John McDaniel, Otto Kent Spires, David McDonald, Mike Corpier, Matt Kerner, and Sue Stevens. So we drew you drew a lot of people today. And thanks a lot for stopping by. And I just love hearing these stories. And Mark's on the list. Just let him know. We'll be hitting him up too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you guys do. Right on.
I'll throw you the frisbee, catch it. All right. Bye.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
All righty. I gotta figure out how to turn this off.
Thank you.
Thank you.